Greetings metalheads, George here from No Nonsense Metal Reviews, here today to share a few words on my experiences finally getting to see two bands live that I've wanted to see in person for years. Never had a chance up until Saturday night, in fact, just gone, the 7th of March 2026, finally seeing two bands which I adore, Swedish heavy metal kings, the mighty Hammerfall, and German power metal, heavy metal beasts, the mighty Powerwolf. Yes, finally got to see both these bands in the flesh, live in concert at the Wembley Arena in London, here in the UK, and it was a freaking spectacular show. It was absolutely stunning. Both bands delivered top class sets. Absolutely fantastic. Cannot fault either band on their set list, on their delivery. It was incredible. It was an absolutely incredible show. They were also supported by dwarf metalers. Windrose, unfortunately, didn't manage to arrive in time to catch Windrose. I was really hoping to. I'll do my best to catch them if they do hit the UK again on the road, of course. If I can, I will. But with just Hammerfall and Powerwolf, that was enough metal, heavy freaking metal for one night anyway. And both bands, as I say, delivered seriously good sets. Must be the biggest UK show for both bands, respectively. Can't guarantee that, but Wembley Arena is a pretty big venue. Sitting in the shadow of Wembley Stadium, of course. The arena is still a pretty large venue. I did hear whisperings that Wembley is 12,000 capacity, or there was 12,000 fans there that night. Not sure on that, but either way, it looked like a pretty packed out venue, and standing, as I was, unreserved standing, it was a pretty tight squeeze down there. It got pretty hot and pretty rowdy. Both very energetic bands. Hammerfall, very energetic and boisterous, and Powerwolf, absolutely bombastic, of course. So if you're not familiar with these bands, they do sit within that sweet spot in the middle of the metal Venn diagram between heavy metal and power metal. It's not quite totally out there European pop, but at the same time, it's not quite as muscular as traditional heavy metal or the new wobben. They kind of sit in the middle. Is it heavy metal? Is it power metal? Who cares? Both bands are freaking awesome. Love them to bits. Been a fan of Hammerfall and Powerwolf for many moons. So Hammerfall were on first, and they had a pretty long set actually. So 10-11 tracks, I believe, in total. Still supporting their 2024 album, which I think is a really solid album actually, Avenge the Fallen. They even had that album artwork as their backdrop. It's a really solid album. They came on to the title track. They also played later on in their set The End Justifies and Hail to the King, which are three of the best tracks on the album, I think is fair to say. And it was fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Hammerfall are a really consistent and really reliable band. And actually, I would say this album is another fine representation of what Hammerfall are all about. Heavy metal. Heavy freaking metal. It's got a real Judas Priest kind of swagger to it. Great twin guitars there. The whole band was just electric, I have to say. Absolute talents. Joachim Cans on vocals. There's the main man. He's a fantastic vocalist, and live he sounded brilliant. They played a real good career-spanning set list, actually. Obviously heavily orientating towards Avenge the Fallen, but we had classics from earlier albums as well. We had no shortage of proper chant-along, sing-along classics, and it was brilliant, start to finish. Also want to point out the brilliant guitar duo of Oscar Droniak. I guess he's the main man. It's his band. He's the main guy. alongside, also on guitars, if I can find him, we've got Pontus Norgren as well. Amazing shredder. Both of those guys are serious talents. Frederick on the bass rather is a brilliant talent as well, and David on drums absolutely killing it. Really tight unit, fantastic. As I say, I'm a big Hammerfall fan. It was great to get some real deep cuts as well, but also some fan favourites. By any means necessary from the No Sacrifice, No Victory album. We had the title track from Renegade as well in there. We just had no shortage of real sing-along stuff. Hammer High, it was brilliant. Templars, freaking awesome stuff. Loved it to bits. So much energy. Flawless stuff. But I think everyone was really there, mainly for the headliner. Makes sense, right? We have German heavy metal stars, and they really have risen. Understandably, because they're a freaking great band. All of their albums are pretty solid. There's no duds. Even their earlier albums, where they really kind of finding their way, finding their sound, honing their sound. Still really top class albums. But Powerwolf, and they absolutely delivered. Hot on the back of a new live album. So a live tour to support a live album, I suppose. This is actually Wild Live, which I will be doing a more detailed review on very soon. Wild Live, live at the Olympiahalle in Munich, München, I believe. And this is a cracking live album. If you're looking for an at-a-glance introduction to Powerwolf, then this is a really good starting point. It is a brilliant live album. And in fairness, over the 2 hours that Powerwolf were playing for, it was a long set. Absolutely fantastic. Totally gripping. Pretty much this set list was played, but in a different order. And there were a few differences as well. It wasn't just the same set, I will point out. But it was absolutely fantastic. Whereas Hammerfall had their Avenge the Fallen backdrop and their kind of castle-looking aesthetics on stage, Powerwolf, following on from the likes of Iron Maiden and Ghost, as I've seen recently, they went with the big LED screens. It was big screens providing a very dynamic and diverse backdrop. They did have kind of church-looking props as well, and that kind of decoration on stage, and the whole thing was so awesome. It was such a great visual experience as well. Powerwolf, if you've seen them live before, if you've seen concert footage, of course, try and find a bit of footage here, they really do look the part live. You know, there's no half measures. They clearly put a lot of energy and focus into having an amazing visual experience as well. And it really was amazing to witness. Talk about overuse of pyro. I say overuse, heavy use of pyro. You were getting barbecued in there. I was fortunately quite close to the front, and it was a serious amount of pyro. It got very hot there, very hot indeed, but it was worth it. Attila Dawn on vocals. He is a fantastic vocalist. He's got a great voice, sounds great on the records, of course. I thought he sounds brilliant on Wild Live as well, but of course on the album, you know that there's been production, there's been mixing and all that good stuff. Studio magic. In the flesh, Attila sounds absolutely brilliant. He has such a powerful voice, a very distinctive voice as well, but he sounded brilliant the whole time. The whole band were absolutely electric, red hot. There's a lot of crowd interaction from Attila, a lot of good interaction and play, I think is the word, crowd play going on from Attila and Folk Maria Schlegel, the keyboard player. I was actually trying to find some images of our lineup to show. This is actually from the booklet of the Wake Up the Wicked album. So this is the Wake Up the Wicked album released in 2024, and this was the Wake Up the Wicked Tour 2026. So they are, again, just like Hammerfall, still supporting an album which came out nearly 2 years ago, but it works. A lot of this album was represented. Well, I say a lot. There was 4 tracks. In fact, we had Bless Them With the Blade kicking off the set. Short while later, we had Sinners of the Seven Seas, which was absolutely amazing, and we had the amazing visuals in the background of the werewolves coming out of the ocean, out of the water, I should say. We then had Heretic Hunters, which is one of my favourite Powerwolf tracks. It is absolutely freaking fantastic. I love that one. Killer. Then we had 1589, which is also amazing. And we did also have Joan of Arc, in fact. So, 5 tracks there? Absolutely incredible. Again, all the visuals were amazing there. The whole thing was utterly fantastic. Another album that got a fair bit of representation is this album, which is another one of my favourites, to be fair. This is the Sacrament of Sin. This came out in 2018, I believe. Yep, 2018. But this is a fantastic one, and it has some of the best known tracks of Powerwolf's arsenal. Kicks off with Fire and Forgive, which was represented. We also had the very sing-along worthy Demons Are a Girl's Best Friend, which is a brilliant one. Incense and Iron, and we had a stunning performance of Where the Wild Wolves Have Gone, which is the kind of slower track, the more melodic track. Not a ballad, wouldn't say that. But it's a bit of a slower track. Everyone was encouraged to hold their phone lights up and light up the arena. And it was a really beautiful experience, actually. Absolutely stunning stuff. And I think that was all the tracks from this particular album, in fact. But it was still well represented. And it is an absolutely killer album. And again, they really did cover a good chunk of their catalogue. We had obligatory classics, such as a few gems from Preachers of the Night. We had Amen and Attack. And we also had a slightly unexpected but awesome rendition of Kreuzfeuer. Absolutely brilliant. We had Blessed and Possessed. A couple of classics from here as well. We had Army of the Night and Amata Strigoi. Absolutely fantastic. Call of the Wild, another absolute gem. Love this album a lot. And we did have the brilliant Blood for Blood from this album, which was awesome. I think we might have had Faster Than the Flame as well. Struggling to remember. But absolutely fantastic. This is a really top-notch album. I realised I forgot to bring out the Blood of the Saints album as well. But we had some truly brilliant stuff. The whole band were absolutely red hot. Sounded absolutely fantastic. Have the Grey Wolf brothers on guitar riffing up a storm, and then we have Raoul on drums. Absolutely killing the kit. Very tight unit. Very good band. Very good musicians. Clearly in their element. You could tell both bands, Hammerfall and Powerwolf, were clearly very pleased to be there. They were clearly having the time of their life, giving it their all. It was very energetic. You just got that energy from the bands. And Attila did actually even reflect on that. There's so much energy in that venue, and they are feeding on that energy, and the crowd are feeding on their energy too. And it really was an absolute pleasure to be there. It was a fantastic show. It's one of those gigs where you come out of afterwards, and even though you've been in there for the best part of 4+ hours, your legs are aching, you're sweaty, you could probably have gone for another few more hours, and certainly a few more tracks at least, if they had been able to. It was a fantastic one. You come out wanting more. And if you do want more, sadly, the tour is over. So you won't be able to catch Powerwolf on their current tour or Hammerfall on the current tour because it has now concluded. However, I do not doubt that both bands will be back on the road again before long. And, you know, another new album is probably due for both bands this year or next. And until then, Powerwolf have just delivered this Wild Live, which is a killer live album. Absolutely fantastic. They've got a ton of excellent albums. They've got 10 albums. They're all brilliant, thoroughly enjoyable, heavy freaking metal. And Hammerfall as well. A cracking recent album, of course, in Avenge the Fallen, but they've got some solid gems, absolute classics in their discography as well. I would say, honestly, I don't want to say it was a 10 out of 10 show because I feel like that's almost unachievable, but I'm going to say it was easily a 9. It was absolutely fantastic. Other than a few drunk idiots making a nuisance of themselves in the crowd, pushing people around, that aside, the whole experience was freaking awesome. Powerwolf, just freaking incredible, and Hammerfall, absolutely mighty band. So, a great show. Really, 2 bands. If you haven't checked them out, if you've been put off by the whole power metal tag, get over it, give them a chance. They've got so many great albums and tracks for you not to be missing out on. So, were you there, my friends, at Wembley Arena, or have you caught Powerwolf and Hammerfall on the Wake Up the Wicked tour? Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one if you were there. If not, if you're not familiar with them, check them out and let me know. But I hope you've enjoyed this humble review, my friends. Thank you very much for watching. Please do feel free to check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all those good heavy things. Till next time, take care of yourselves, my friends. Listen to Powerwolf and Hammerfall and stay freaking heavy.